If there is one imperial Easter gift that definitively demonstrates the close link between Faberge and the Tsar, it is the 15th anniversary egg. Presented to Alexandra in 1911, it celebrates Nicholas's decade and a half on the throne.
My favorite is the 15th anniversary egg, for the reason cited. It is probably the egg which is most completely associated with Nicholas and Alexandra. Literally is like a family album, and not only are the portraits of the Tsar and his wife and children, but there are all these incredible miniatures of all the major events of his reign. The only thing missing is the tragic denouement.
The miniatures are painted on ivory by artist Vasily Zuyev from photographs and drawings of the time. Among the 9 views of places and events associated with Nicholas's reign are the coronation procession, the coronation ceremony, the opening of the State Duma, a legislative body, the Alexander III Bridge in Paris, and the canonization of Saint Seraphim, to whom Alexandra had prayed for a son. The egg's incredibly detailed artwork is all the more impressive when one realizes that these panels are each less than 2 inches across. The egg is evidence that Nicholas had much to celebrate in 1911. He had survived the 1905 revolution and a disastrous war with Japan to see his nation prosper. Russia's industrial growth rivaled that of the United States, and the arts, exemplified by Faberge's jeweled wonder, flourished. But the 15th anniversary egg's dazzling craftsmanship could not distract Nicholas from the burden of keeping a dark family secret. His 7-year-old son and only heir, Alexei, was diagnosed with hemophilia, a life-threatening blood disease. His condition was so precarious that he often had to be carried at public events.
It was a real family tragedy. It didn't become publicly known because they withheld the knowledge. They felt that it would be too devastating for the dynasty, for the people, to know that the heir to the throne had this very serious disease.
The health of her son possessed Alexandra. She did anything to keep him alive. When doctors could not cure the boy, she prayed for help. It came in the form of a Siberian holy man, a charismatic figure with his own mystical brand of medicine, Grigory Rasputin.
You had this boy in great pain, this desperate mother. In comes this holy man who, by telling stories, by singing songs, could distract the boy by using these extraordinary eyes. You have only to see a photograph of him to realize the power of those eyes.
Rasputin's miraculous healing powers gave him extraordinary influence over the royal family, especially Alexandra, who made him her confidant. Many questioned the Tsarina's association with Rasputin, for when he was not tending to Alexei, he indulged in orgies with St. Petersburg prostitutes.
Everybody in St. Petersburg knew about this. Alexandra did not, and when she was told, she refused to believe these stories. She said, they're made up by our enemies. All she knew was that he could help her son. Nicholas had more information and tried to get rid of Rasputin. And then Alexandra would come to him and say, you know, our son's life depends on him.
Rasputin's debauchery soon fueled unfounded and sinister rumors about the nature of his relationship with the imperial family. The hint of scandal, combined with the tragedy of Alexei's fragile health, added intrigue and irony to the 300th anniversary of Romanov rule in 1913. The event was marked by religious services, parades, official ceremonies, and, of course, a Faberge. The imperial tercentenary egg is a gilded gallery of Russia's ruling house. Its white enamel shell is almost completely covered by golden cagework. Amidst the swirling pattern is a repeated motif of the imperial double-headed eagle and various crowns. Set into the egg are portraits of the 18 Romanovs to rule Russia, painted on ivory by Zuyev, the artist who had done the magnificent miniatures on the 15th anniversary egg. A few of the monarchs depicted on the tercentenary became the inspiration for individual Faberge eggs, the most spectacular of which is the imperial cameo, a tribute to Catherine the Great, the monarch whose art treasures formed the basis of the Hermitage collection that Faberge had studied. It was presented to Nicholas's mother, the Dowager Empress Marie, in 1914. Though it stands less than 5 inches high, the egg is a towering achievement in cameo. The panels, painted by Zuyev, are in the style of 18th century French painting. The large central panels are allegories or symbols. The one in front represents the arts. The back panel, sciences. The smaller panels frame personifications of the 4 seasons. The surprise, now lost, resembled this sedan chair on which sits a figure of Catherine the Great carried by 2 bearers. The Catherine the Great egg is the only one in the series for which the reaction of its royal recipient was recorded. Nikki presented me with a most beautiful Easter egg. The Dowager Empress beamed in a letter to her sister, Queen Alexandra of England. Faberge brought it to me himself. It is a true chef d'oeuvre. Faberge is the greatest genius of our time. The same year the Dowager Empress received the Catherine the Great egg, World War I broke out. Russia had one of the largest armies in the world, but soon proved to be one of its most ill-prepared. Outgunned and outmaneuvered by German forces, 1 million Russian soldiers were killed, wounded, or missing in action in just the first 5 months of war. In 1915, after critical munitions shortages led to more crushing defeats, Nicholas appointed himself commander-in-chief and went to the front, where he was briefly joined by son Alexei. The Tsar did not trust his independent-minded ministers to run the government in his absence, so Alexandra became his surrogate. Her sole advisor was Rasputin, whose capricious counsel turned the palace into a revolving door of appointments and dismissals. As government stability declined, food and fuel supplies ran short. Many Russians, frustrated with these conditions, accused the German-born Alexandra of treason. Nicholas fared no better on the war front. Munitions supplies were so low that his men often went into battle limited to 3 shots a day, if they had weapons at all. The wounded came home at such a rate that the Tsar's palace at Tsarskoye Selo became an army hospital. There, Alexandra and her 2 eldest daughters, Olga and Tatiana, became Red Cross nurses.
They'd spend the day not only going from bed to bed and holding hands and saying something reassuring, they were actually in the operating room. One of the Alexandra's friends, I have seen the Empress of Russia, the surgeon would hand her an arm he had just taken off. And she felt fulfilled by this. She felt, well, at last I'm doing something really useful. I'm sure that the Red Cross egg was intended to commemorate this.
The Red Cross egg, presented in 1915, is austere, reflecting a wartime economy that made precious metals scarce. The exterior's plain white enamel is reminiscent of the first imperial Easter egg. The shell features portraits of the Grand Duchesses in their Red Cross uniforms, a somber contrast to their joyful, innocent faces that appeared on the Lilies of the Valley egg 17 years earlier. Befitting the times in which it was made, the Red Cross egg's surprise is serious. A painting entitled The Harrowing of Hell.
It's a very simple egg. It's beautiful in its simplicity, which gets to the situation which Russia was in. The opulence had been put aside, and this was a Russia with its back to its walls, bleeding.
World War I would end in disaster for Russia and plunge her into another revolution, marking the end of Nicholas and Alexandra and the production of Faberge eggs.